Hello. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Once upon a time there were 4 little rabbits. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor."
The words of Beatrix Potter, author of The Tale of Peter Rabbit and many other popular children's stories. In fact, it was her great success as an author which helped finance her passion for farming. By the time she died in 1943, she had 4,000 acres, including 14 farms, and her home here, Hilltop, all of which she left to the National Trust. As a prominent farmer, we can only wonder what Potter, or maybe even her characters, would have made of the EU, Brexit, and of course the next unwritten chapter of British farming.
Whom should Peter meet but Mr. McGregor? Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden looking for the Brexit. He ran straight into a messy tangle of red tape.
Beatrix Potter's farms can be found in the Lake District, where resilience and innovation are as important as ever.
There are farmers in Scotland, in Wales, here in the Lake District that really struggle.
John Watson is a tenant farmer at Yew Tree Farm, which was one of Beatrix Potter's. He uses this to attract tourism, which supplements his income. He voted to remain in the EU.
Life's very uncertain at the moment. What's happening with Brexit is going to have a huge impact on these sorts of farms. I don't make any money. I struggle year in, year out, trying all different forms of diversification to try and bring money in, because I'm one of these idiots that actually loves farming. I love working with animals. I love being out in this beautiful countryside. As a fell farmer, I cannot survive without subsidy. There, I've said it. I need the subsidy.
The Common Agricultural Policy was designed to boost productivity. Controversially, the subsidies are based on how much land is owned, not on what a farm produces. UK farmers received €3.1 billion last year.
Pickles ran the village shop and gave subsidies to the local farmers. While some people really liked Pickles' payments, others got fed up with being told what to do and won't be dipping into Pickles' pot any longer.
So far, the UK government has pledged to replace EU funding until 2020. Now, at the grassroots, including here in Exmoor, farmers must consider carefully how to survive in a dramatically changing landscape. It's being called the biggest farming conversation for a generation. Before the EU referendum, the industry was largely divided, but now it's united in looking for opportunities in a post-Brexit world. One question for the farmers who did vote out is, what is more alluring than free money?
Is she going to just leave that there? Nothing in this life is free, and as we were discovering with EU payments, they were asking for more and more for their free money.
The Miltons voted to leave the EU, with the young especially keen. A different story perhaps to the national narrative, which suggested that many younger Remainers were at odds with their parents and grandparents.
I listened to some of the next generation, and they were saying we need a few opportunities, and the only time opportunities arrive is when you have change.
The way I looked at Brexit was, what's the worst that could happen? We'd have to sell the farm because we couldn't make it pay. If you've got the right attitude, you will do something with it. I'll quite happily take a risk.
I don't think they're going to like me for this, but I don't want to kick older farmers out, but I think there's a lot there that don't want to let go. The cap has kept them in a farm where maybe they should have let a youngster take it over.
The Miltons all feel the burden of red tape, but accept that it must be endured. They hope that after Brexit, it will be better tailored to the UK's farmers. Is the government doing enough to support you?
No, there's a feeling not at the moment, and I feel the government's lost the focus on what the value of agriculture and landscape has been.
In 1984, New Zealand's farming industry was transformed when its government scrapped most subsidies. Diversification and intensification were embraced and productivity increased. But there's also been criticism, as many environmental rules were relaxed. In the UK, farmers are responsible for environmental upkeep. Upland and fell farmers look after hedgerows, stone walls and watercourses.
It costs roughly £15 a metre. It's an expensive occupation to maintain hedges. Cheaper alternative, a wire fence, like say there. No aesthetic value, no environmental value, but like in New Zealand, practical, does the job, keeps the livestock in. Those responsibilities are for the benefit of the public as well. So there's an expectation, if we're going to help you, just help us stay there to do so.
I'd like to think we could do without any subsidy at all, but that's utter madness really. If you want us to preserve the heritage of Exmoor, then you can't destroy Exmoor, because as farmers we want to all be millionaires.
Yet some environmental campaigners say that farmers are not doing enough to justify the financial support they're asking for.
We see very, very low productivity. 1 sheep per hectare, 1 sheep per 2 hectares, 1 sheep per 5 hectares, almost nothing being produced, and yet almost no wildlife either, because the sheep are a fully automated system for maximum environmental destruction. You just let them loose in the hills and they nibble everything away. Trees can't grow, wildlife can't return. I'm not talking about taking away all sheep, I'm just saying let's stop paying for this damage.
In the middle of a lake, there is an island. Twinkleberry and his squirrel friends visited the island, which belonged to Old Brown the owl. Will you favour us with work gathering your apples and cabbages? We're very efficient.
James Hook's hatcheries produce a third of the chickens eaten in the UK. He voted Remain, but he doesn't rely on subsidies. Chicken and pig farmers don't get them. He relies on people.
We employ 2,500 people across the country in our hatcheries and on our farms. About 20% of those are coming from Europe, quite a lot of Eastern European people, and that's made a massive difference to our business and enabled us to grow. I'm concerned that because of the devaluation of the pound, the money is now not as good as it was. People are not made to feel welcome, and more importantly at all, will they be allowed to come in?
James has already closed 2 facilities because of a shortage of willing workers.
Will we have the labour to work on our farms? Will our customers have the labour to work in their factories? Will we have the labour to come and help pluck the turkeys at Christmas? Because if we haven't got it, we can't continue.
Tommy Brock was a short, bristly, fat, waddling badger. Today he was complaining bitterly about the scarcity of bananas with abnormal curvature. I am quite sick of straight bananas.
Membership of the EU spawned many a myth. Now it's time to face the realities of leaving. Ensuring food security is a priority. Can enough be produced by UK farmers to feed the country affordably? Peter Kendall is an arable farmer who owns 2,000 acres in Bedfordshire and manages a further 3,000. He voted to Remain and is now concerned about an influx of cheap imports.
There's a real nervousness that too many, I think quite prominent politicians now, are advocating cheap food. And if they think they're going to scavenge the world for the cheapest possible beef, lamb, grains, dairy products, I think you could see the British countryside massively changed. The environment would be damaged and we'd produce a lot less food.
Article 50 will be triggered within days. Then, the long wait for results. Farming, like other industries, will need to toil hard to be heard during the government's negotiations. Peter Rabbit's been brought into the 21st century, and there's a desire for a newer, shinier version of modern British farming. Whether farmers voted for Brexit or not, leaving could offer the industry the opportunity to make positive changes.
We need to move to a world where we're seen to be entrepreneurial businessmen producing for the market. But we do have that reputation of being paid to do nothing.
We've actually got a really short period to come up with a domestic policy that understands what farming in the UK is all about.
They won't be throwing money at farmers anymore. I do love the old-fashioned ways of farming. I embrace them, but I'm not stuck there. I can move.
And that, dear viewers, looks like the end of our tale. But of course it isn't. This story will go on and on and on and on and on.